Yeah. I gotta get a longer one. Thank you. I can do a short one.
This is too high. Angela, Mike, this thing's too high.
Senator, if you want to give them white balance, and you can give me your phone.
I don't. Yes, Jerry. What they're doing is checking the box. Hi, Jerry. Thanks for coming.
Good with the wife now.
Okay, thank you, everybody. We have a great delegation in New York, and I'm proud to be joined by them all. I'll start this way and work my way over. Congressman Meeks, Congresswoman Velazquez, Congressman Jeffries, Congressman Espiat, Congressman Nadler. We're representing, I guess, 4 of the 5 boroughs? 4 of the 5 boroughs of our city. And I know that our Congressman Max Rose would stand with us as well, but couldn't be here today. Okay, well, we're here today with some good news and some bad news, some very unfortunate news. The good news, the New York delegation is a fighting delegation and fights really hard and very often successfully for New York. The bad news, we stick together. We care about this great city and this great state. And we work hard as a team to get things done and to deliver. Bad news, the bill Leader McConnell is putting on the floor of the Senate this week on COVID is a dagger to the heart of New York. And that's a downright shame. Because while the folks behind me worked very hard to pass a great bill in the House that had hundreds of billions for state aid, hundreds of billions for direct local aid, tens of billions for mass transit aid, you know how much the McConnell bill has in dollars for state and local aid and for mass transit to help our subways and buses? Zero, nada, a big goose egg. The bill seeks to rot the core of the Big Apple. It would be a devastating loss for New York. But we are here today to make it very clear that the McConnell bill will not pass the House and will not pass the Senate. It is a bill that they're using to sort of check the box. Now, I got a lot of red pencils here. They don't want to really get anything done. Their bill is an emaciated bill. It's not even a skinny bill. It doesn't help in so many different ways. But we're here focusing on the ways it doesn't help New York, but he can have all the red pencils he wants and checks the box. He's not going to pass an emaciated bill that doesn't help New York at all. The virus is still raging. They're foot dragging. And their proposal barely lifts a finger to help our great city and our great state. And it's not only a loser for New York, it's a loser for the country. People getting kicked out of their houses, no money. People can't feed their kids, no money. Money to help make sure that our elections run fairly and on the up and up, money for the states to run the elections, money for the post office, we don't see it. So this bill is just a loser. And we are going to fight it tooth and nail, and we're here to tell Leader McConnell, President Trump, Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, and Secretary Mnuchin, this bill will not pass. Go back to the drawing boards. Do a real bill. Speaker Pelosi and I are willing to meet you halfway, but not with this bill, which is not just skinny, but emaciated. It will not solve our problems. The bottom line is very simple. A relief bill that's woefully short of New York's needs will be fought tooth and nail and will be defeated. So how should I do this? Should we do it in seniority order? Mr. Gerald Nadler, representing the great boroughs of Manhattan and Brooklyn.
Well, thank you very much, Chuck. As Chuck said, a bill that does nothing to help New York, that does nothing to help the people of New York, that does nothing to help the country, is not a bill that we can pass. This bill seeks, Chuck called it skinny. I don't see anything at all in this bill. The bill provides no money for elections. It provides no money for maintaining employment. It provides no money for schools. It provides no money for anything. It provides no money to maintain the economy of the country. You know, the House passed the bill, 3 months ago, that provides ample funding to get us through the pandemic. That provides funding for the city, for the state, for all cities, for all states, and for the economy, to maintain the economy so that people can put food on the table and they can keep the jobs waiting until the pandemic is over. This bill provides nothing at all, and it totally misses the needs of the country. It totally misses the needs of New York. It totally misses the needs of the state and of the city. And we cannot permit a bill like this to pass. It's a sham. It won't pass the House, certainly. I presume it probably won't pass the Senate. It will not pass the Senate. I'm glad to hear that confirmed. And we have to make sure that we have to get the Republican leaders to negotiate seriously, to do something for the state, the city, and the country.
Thank you, Congressman Nadler. Now we have Congresswoman Velazquez, who represents the three great boroughs of Brooklyn, Queens, and Manhattan, who is known throughout New York as La Luchadora, a fighter.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Leader Schumer, for bringing us together today. It is shameful that on a day that we celebrate Labor Day, when our nation traditionally pays homage to the struggles of the working women and men who built America, we have to be here to say to Mitch McConnell, shame on you, that while we are reaching 200,000 people who have lost their lives, what is there for the Republicans to offer to those who are suffering and are struggling? Nothing. We lost 11.5 million jobs since the virus took hold in February. We have watched hunger skyrocket in our nation. Here in New York City, it is estimated that 2 million of our neighbors are food insecure, in part due to the pandemic's economic effects. Small businesses in New York City and across the country continue struggling to keep their doors open and employees on payroll. So as this crisis is unfolding, how are Republicans in the Senate responding? Well, at first, after the House passed the HEROES Act, Senate Republicans decided that they will go on pause. Then they put out a wholly inadequate bill, less than 1/3 of what Democrats proposed in the House. We offered to lower our bill cost, to compromise, and they still could not find consensus among themselves to truly negotiate. Now, Senator McConnell is cutting the already inadequate bill in half. As Americans continue to hurt, Senate Republicans are moving in the exact wrong direction. So here is what we know is not in the latest bill. There is no money for rental assistance. There is nothing for nutrition assistance. State and local services will receive inadequate funds. There are no funds for safe election. In the HEROES Act, we set aside funding for the Paycheck Protection Program to be directed specifically to the smallest of the small businesses. We targeted assistance to lenders that are mission-based lenders to help those small businesses. What does the Senate bill do for these businesses? Again, nothing. The measure Senator McConnell will put forth next week does not help Americans. That is because it's not meant to. This bill is designed as a cover for politically endangered Senate Republicans who are terrified that they will be voted out in November. We have news for you, Mitch McConnell. The American people see through this political stunt. They are not buying it. If you think the American people cannot tell the difference between real relief and political posturing, you are sorely mistaken. We need Mitch McConnell and the White House to come to the table and start seriously negotiating. Thank you.
Thank you, Congresswoman Velazquez. Congressman Meeks, who represents the great borough of Queens and part of Nassau County.
Enough, enough, enough. Enough of the political pandering of Mitch McConnell. Enough of the lies of Donald Trump. And enough of the desperation of the Republican members of the United States Senate. The camera of history is rolling. And it's watching to see, in this time of this horrendous pandemic, of this time of despair in our country, of this time when we need to be united more than ever, where did you stand? And it's becoming clearer and clearer every day that Mitch McConnell, when he should have been negotiating all along, 4 months we passed the HEROES bill. And for 4 months, Senator Schumer has been fighting and working with Nancy Pelosi to get the Senate to do something. And what did Mitch McConnell do? Absolutely nothing. Enough of that. So much so that even if you look at the last few so-called negotiations, because Senator Schumer and Nancy Pelosi have been trying to work together to get something done, was Mitch McConnell even at the table? He wasn't even there to negotiate. He punted. He gave up. He sat down and allowed Mark Meadows, yes, it's the same Mark Meadows that we know from the House, who could not negotiate a budget there, Secretary Mnuchin, which is basically Donald Trump, do all of the negotiations. At this time of history, when they're supposed to be the legislative body working collectively to oversee the executive body, Mitch McConnell has chosen not to even sit at the table, to give it all over to the executive. And we know this executive. For 4 years, everything that he's done has been just about himself, either what he thinks will help him in an election or what will benefit his pocket. Enough. It is time for the people to come together, and particularly here in the city and state of New York. We have the opportunity to make sure that we collectively work together to make sure that everybody, and that's what Senator Schumer is doing, and his proposal, what he's working for, is to make sure that everybody, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican or an independent, does not have to continue to suffer as a result of this pandemic. That's what's at stake here. That's what we need to do. Because if we don't include funding for city and state, then in fact, what this president is doing, he's actually doing what he claims the rhetoric of others. He's really the rhetoric of defunding education. You don't put money into city and states, that's what you're doing. Defunding hospitals. You don't put money into city and state, you're defunding hospitals. Defunding fire departments. You don't put money into city and state, you're defunding fire departments. And yes, defunding the police. You don't put money into city and states, you are in fact defunding the police. That is what's going on right now across this nation with this leadership, or lack thereof. Enough is enough is enough.
Thank you, Congressman Meeks. Congressman Hakeem Jeffries, who's the chair of the House Democratic Caucus.
Well, I thank the senior senator from New York, Senator Schumer, the next majority leader of the United States Senate, for his tremendous leadership and once again bringing us together as a delegation to stand strong on behalf of the state that we love and represent. I thank all of my colleagues in the delegation for their continued fight as we all proceed with the fierce urgency of now to address the coronavirus pandemic. Each and every year, New York State sends tens of billions of dollars more to the federal government than we get back in return. All we are asking for at this moment of need is our fair share. Yes, we continue to subsidize other parts of the country, but we are a generous people here in New York. Yet, in this hour of need, funds should be distributed equitably to each and every state in the union. The Republican skinny coronavirus bill fails that basic test. It is like a heat-seeking missile aimed directly at the heart and soul of New York, and we will not let it stand. On May 15th, the House passed the HEROES Act, a $3+ trillion intervention to deal with the coronavirus pandemic in a way that meets the moment. The coronavirus pandemic is an extraordinary crisis. It requires an extraordinary intervention. That is what Chuck Schumer, the Senate Democrats, and House Democrats would like to see for our nation. It's pretty simple. Given all of the pain, suffering, and death being experienced by the American people, almost 200,000 Americans dead, more than 100,000 small businesses permanently closed, over 6 million Americans infected by the coronavirus, over 50 million Americans at some point during this pandemic unemployed. Pain, suffering, and death experienced by the American people, and Senate Republicans do nothing. And now they want to nickel and dime the American people. No money for state and local stabilization. No money for assistance to tenants struggling to pay rent or homeowners struggling to pay their mortgages. No funds to support our heroes who have been on the front lines. No money for the MTA, where the House bill provides approximately $4 billion. I hesitate to call the Senate Republican coronavirus legislation skeletal, because that would be an insult to skeletons. It's a complete and total abdication of the Senate Republican responsibility to help the American people. It is dead on arrival in the House, and thanks to Chuck Schumer's leadership, will be dead on arrival in the Senate. Let's come together to do the right thing, not just for New York, but for the American people, to defeat the coronavirus pandemic. Stop hiding from your responsibilities. Mitch McConnell, come to the negotiating table. The White House needs to come to the negotiating table. Let's get this done for the people.
Thank you, Congressman Jeffries. And last but not least, representing Manhattan and the Bronx, Congressman Escalante.
Thank you, Senator Schumer, for your fight, for your struggle for New Yorkers. And thank you to my colleagues that are here in a fight for the soul of our country and very much the existence of our state and city. $100 billion for rental assistance and mortgage assistance. Now, we may have a moratorium, but at the end of the day, when that moratorium is done, the landlord's going to be waiting for that check. People stop me every day. I represent the district that has perhaps the highest concentration of rent-stabilized apartment and a great number of NYC units, as does Nydia Velazquez district as well. And they stop me every day and they tell me I'm backed up 3, 4, 5, 6 months worth of rent. That's a half a year. I think anybody that's backed up 2 months worth of rent is in trouble to begin with. And so even though we may have a moratorium, we're looking at people that are back. Some have stopped me in the street and tell me they can't sleep because they don't know where they're going to get the money to pay the rent, because the rent is too damn high to begin with. And so this is critical for renters and also for mortgage assistance. $100 billion in the HEROES Act to help tenants and owners, because at the end of the day they're going to have a problem meeting their obligations with the bank as well, especially the small owners. That's one. Nothing, nada from the Senate. Food stamps. I see the food lines growing and growing. Going around the block. I was with Senator Gillibrand, Senator Schumer the other day, and the line went around the block with moms and grandmas with their kids. Now, Congresswoman Meg and myself have been pushing for the ability to buy hot food with that, with food stamps. They don't even give us that. You can't even get a hot meal. Food stamps, the very basic. Food on your table, nothing, nada from the Senate. Small businesses, there's still monies in the PPP program. Our bill extends until December. What do we get from the Senate? Nothing, nada. If a small business failed to get some money from the PPP program and they want to do it now, they can't do it. The first week of August, it got shut down, nothing, nada. So we see these basic programs that are so critical to the well-being of Americans. I saw a program today on TV that said that by the time we're done with the pandemic, there may be as many as 500,000 deaths in the country. We're already approaching 200,000. Certainly before November, unfortunately, we'll have 200,000 Americans dead and millions positive from the COVID-19. And so the country needs help. $100 billion for rental assistance. We must do more for our small businesses. Food stamps, come on, food on the table. At least you'll be able to go to a restaurant and buy a hot plate of rice and beans. Estamos aquí. You know how we feel about rice and beans, Congresswoman, right?
We like them too.
You like them too. He goes up to my district and has a lot of rice and beans. And so, estamos aquí para apoyar el plan de la Cámara de Representantes que propone $100,000 millones para la renta, propone más dinero para los cupones de alimento y propone seguir ayudando a los pequeños comerciantes. Gracias. Again, the Senate plan, nothing, nada.
Thank you. Well, thank you, all of my colleagues, for so articulating why the Senate bill is such a disaster for New York and for the country. Again, let me say, Mitch McConnell, take one of these red pencils, they're nice and sharp, add in money for state and local, add in money for mass transit, add in money for all of others New York needs, food and housing and business, small business, and then maybe add in money for those things that New York needs, and then maybe we can get together on a bill. But a bill like this, which is just done to check the box and not really get anything done, to take 12 Republican senators who are running for re-election and are in trouble, and their constituents are crying out for help, isn't going to do the job, isn't going to pass, is a sham, is a fake, and the American people aren't going to stand for it, New York's not going to stand for it, and we are not going to stand for it. Questions, we're only going to take them on this subject because we had a long
It seems
Dave.
like the rest of the country, though, instead of talking about this right now in the last couple of days, last week or so, is talking more about law and order and rioting in cities all over the country.
People want unity. People want us to come together. They know Donald Trump is dividing us. They know Joe Biden is unifying us. That's what we believe.
Senator, where do you receive pushback on all of your comments today from President Trump? What was your reaction to Senator Trump?
Well, President Trump, one of the reasons he's in such trouble is he hasn't met the COVID crisis. Our bill meets the crisis. This is the greatest economic crisis in 75 years since the Great Depression. It's the greatest health crisis in 100 years since the Spanish flu. We need it. Their bill doesn't. President Trump doesn't. And that's probably the #1 reason he is so far down in the polls. The American people want real help.
When the Senate goes through the process of considering the GOP bill, it takes time. So it just feels like the back and forth has taken time.
Well, no.
All these meetings need to be
That is not true. What took time is McConnell. The Senate passed the bill The House passed the bill in May. McConnell said, first he said, we'll see if there's a need for the bill. What planet was he on? What planet was he on as people were dying, people were hospitalized, people were losing their jobs, people were losing their businesses, people were losing their money and getting kicked out of their apartments and not feeding their kids. What planet was he on? Then he said, let's go on pause. And he only came to, and he didn't even sit at the table when Speaker Pelosi, Mnuchin, Meadows, and myself started there. So for him to say that he's been here and where have we been is totally ridiculous, and everyone knows it.
When you're talking about cuts to food stamps,
You got to talk a little louder.
when you talk about cuts to food stamps, where does that leave us? Like, is there less money as opposed to last year, or there needs to be more?
No, there's just greater need and no more money. Okay, thank you, everybody. Thank you, my friends. Good. Great job.
Very good.
Send a message.
Yep.
Get up, Chuck. Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Here.
All right, good to see you.